I'm thinking of ending things, out on Netflix now, written and directed by Charlie Kaufman. The film is based on a book by Ian Wright, and it stars Jesse Plemons, Jesse Buckley, Tony Collette, and David Thewlis. Now, if you know anything about Charlie Kaufman, you know that his scripts tend to be weird as hell and brilliant at the same time. His past works include Being John Malkovich, Adaptation, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Synecdoche, New York, and Anomalisa. This new film is not an exception when it comes to weirdness. In fact, it's probably the least accessible of them all. But it sadly is an exception when it comes to brilliance. I have to say, I'm very disappointed with the film, and I think it's the worst Kaufman movie so far. So, what is it about? Well, to be completely honest with you, I don't really know. As I was watching the film, I thought to myself repeatedly, what in the hell's bells is going on here? But since I did have that feeling several times before with Kaufman's works, I knew I could expect that by the end it would all come together somehow. It doesn't here. The credits started to roll, and I was still as confused as I was during the runtime, or perhaps even more. The very basic outline for the story is that Jesse Buckley has been dating Jesse Plemons for several weeks now, and he's taking her on a road trip to meet his parents. On the road there, she's plagued by a thought: I'm thinking of ending things. We then take turns hearing her thoughts as a voiceover narration and listening to the various conversations that the couple is having until they finally reach the house and things start to get really, really weird. That's as much as I'm going to say because honestly, to say something more would be a spoiler. The film is thematically somewhat close to Eternal Sunshine and even has a couple of shots that reminded me of that film, but it's in no way repetitive. What you do have to know is that the film completely disregards anything resembling a traditional narrative structure, and it feels more like a fever dream, an existential nightmare that explores the various fears that people have: fear of commitment, fear of aging, fear of being stuck in an unfulfilling relationship, but also a fear of being alone. At least that's how I interpreted the film about halfway through. Then it changed, and then afterwards I also went online to see if I could learn some more, and apparently the book makes it way clearer as to what's going on. And what that is, I won't say. You can check it yourself if you want, or try to figure it out on your own. For me personally, getting all that the movie was supposedly about was impossible based on just viewing it once. But the problem is, I'm I'm not really interested in seeing it again. I think it feels very disjointed and messy and more than a little self-indulgent. Like if you took all the worst parts of Kaufman's writing without adding all the best parts, especially the prolonged car rides with the two lead characters, just feel like an excuse to have all these pseudo intellectual conversations that are ultimately about nothing and lead nowhere and are just boring. The film is, on the whole, rather incoherent. It's not completely garbage, to be fair. Three things that worked for me, in order. Jessie Buckley's performance, I think she shines through, and even though all the other performances are pretty good as well, she's simply excellent and probably the main reason why I powered through the film. Second thing is the overall atmosphere of the film, at least in the first half. That feeling of unease, of something being fundamentally wrong with the world that is presented. It is at times an existential horror, not in the sense of having scary scenes, but just that feel that things are not quite right. In fact, I had a pretty freaky dream the night after I saw the film, so in some ways it definitely managed to stay in my subconscious. And finally, number three, this entire large chapter, this entire large sequence with the parents in the house. I think it's the best part of the film. The script doesn't then rely solely on the shoulders of Clemens and Buckley to lead those boring conversations. They are suddenly joined by Tony Collette and David Thewlis, and these two bring a very creepy kind of life into the film. These scenes, this entire large chapter of the film, was the best to me, and it actually made the most sense to me as well in terms of what it was trying to say. It was also, at certain moments, really funny in a dark kind of way. Sadly, the whole sequence takes up less than the third of the film, and I'm afraid the rest of it just isn't any good. It really felt like Kaufman went too deep this time around, wallowing in these philosophical deliberations that seemingly don't lead to any specific point or serve a purpose. I know that the film was met with warm critical reception, and people were raving about how Kaufman captures the nature of human condition in the way that only he can. I think that's kind of bullshit, if I'm being honest. It feels to me like the people are pretentious for the sake of appearing like they're intellectuals who can appreciate the work of an unconventional filmmaker. I do appreciate Kaufman's other work, I really do. But I'm thinking of Ending Things is not a good film in my book. It's too unfocused, too muddied, and too incoherent, and maybe just simply too weird and self-indulgent for me.